The other day, TikTok was just banned in the United States, and I don't know if it'll stay banned, but I honestly agree with the decision. I think that in some ways it's a step in the right direction for this world as a whole, because I think a massive issue, a massive epidemic in a way that's not being discussed, is overstimulation. I think that it's strange to me how high the ADHD rates are among kids. And this might sound crazy and out there, but I think some part of it is that from a young age, we're seeing, tablet kids, these children growing up with, a source of constant dopamine flooding into their brains, like such overstimulation that could never have even been fathomed throughout human history. And we're giving them this power at such a young age. And I think we don't know how destructive that can really be. Like, genuinely, throughout the United States, so many kids are being diagnosed with ADHD year over year. I think our attention spans are being absolutely decimated. Our reward systems are being absolutely destroyed. And I think everyone, almost every single person I know to some extent, either struggles with overstimulation, struggles with, not being able to do things as easily because their reward systems have been so permanently damaged by things like TikTok and Netflix and YouTube even to some extent, and listening to music and filling all the gaps, all the silence in our lives. I think all of that is so compounding that it's like this completely normalized thing in our society, the same way as like eating unhealthy or not getting enough exercise. It's almost like we're training ourselves, domesticating ourselves through this process. And I think not enough people are, I feel like people know it's an issue. I wouldn't go as far as to say not enough people are discussing it, because I definitely think people are aware of the problem, but it's one of those things where it's so hard to get away from. It's like, I think our phones are almost an extension of who we are at this point. Like, we are like cyborgs. We're not fully integrated, but everyone has this device in their pockets all the time. It's a part of who they are. It's jobs for some people. It's their entire livelihood. Everything is associated with this block in their pocket that if it went away, some part of them would go away with it, like it's crazy how integrated it's become, that it's not an easy thing to just say, stop using your phone, stop scrolling, stop being on social media. I understand that. Like, I definitely have been there. I'm still there to some extent, but I've also seen the light. I also know that it is possible to take back control of your life, to take back your own freedom away from this hyperstimulation that's affecting our whole world, and how freeing, how liberating it can really be to get away from that. There's this concept called a dopamine detox, and a lot of you guys have probably heard of it to some extent, but it's basically a refresh for your brain. How it works is we have certain neural pathways that work on serotonin and dopamine, and these things are released in very high quantities when you're on your phone. But the thing is that we only have a limited supply in our brains at any given time, and if you use up that supply, like doing drugs or junk food or all these things, it sort of lowers your average baseline dopamine, so you have less of an attention span or get less focus, or there is more resistance, more to push you to do something hard. I'm not like a neuroscientist. Obviously, I might be totally off base, but I think generally what I'm saying carries a lot of truth. That, like, if you are overstimulated, if the first thing you do in the morning is reach for your phone and scroll a little bit, it's going to be harder to get up and do the chores you need to do, like hang up your laundry, go to the gym, like prepare some lunch. It's like we've been conditioned, and it's made it harder for us to do things without that continued stimulation. It's like a drug addict. I know people in my life where they can't even like go to bed without smoking. They can't like cook food or eat food. They can't even like go to the toilet. Like, they always need to be high because their reward systems have been so permanently damaged that, like, without that lifeline, without being hooked up to that flow of, artificial dopamine from the substance, whatever it is, they feel like they can't get it naturally. And I think all of us have some amount of that because of our phones, because we're kind of always in this loop. It's like people are driving and they're listening to music. They're at work and they might have a podcast in their ear, or there's all this stimulation at work, and then they get home and it's like they're watching TV before they go to bed. It's like we never have a chance to just be bored, to be completely alone with our thoughts. And I think there's a lot of value that comes from that. Like, this famous philosopher, Rene Descartes, he used to spend the first 3 hours of his day just staring at the wall, just complete silence, just collecting his thoughts. Or like meditation, all these different things. But genuinely, I think practicing a dopamine detox can be very valuable. I've done a couple of these over the past few years, but basically what it is it's restricting your access to high dopamine sources, like restricting your access to, you know, really intense junk food or drugs or like social media in general. Like what I did specifically is I deleted all of the apps off my phone that I didn't want to be spending time on, like, Instagram Shorts. I mean like Instagram or Snapchat and YouTube Shorts. I didn't let myself do, and I made it so. Well, I didn't do YouTube at all for a while. Later on, I introduced some educational content, but for the most part, it was like I wanted my phone to just be a thing that I could use to message people, to check the time and dates and important news, and that was it. And then I spent a lot of time just reading. Like when you've limited yourself, there are still things you have to do to, fill that time. So I began reading a lot more. And at first it felt really difficult, but eventually it's almost like a recovering drug addict. You start to get more dopamine out of other things. You start to kind of recover from that. And suddenly I really enjoyed reading. I read all of Harry Potter in like 2 weeks. And it suddenly felt easier to get up and hop in a cold shower and hit the gym and do all these things. And there were like 3 months there where I would get up and I would journal every day, and I was on a complete dopamine detox. And this isn't possible for most people. I wouldn't even necessarily recommend this in the long term, but I think everyone should go through this experience. They should learn how that feels, learn that they are capable of letting go of, all of this hyperstimulation, and then use that to inform the decisions they want to make into the future. It's like once you've seen that, this really is a big deal, it really does change the fundamental baseline operating of your life, then you can start to look at the world a little bit differently. You can start to try to create a better relationship with these very, very powerful substances in a way. Like, see it as like we're doping on a drug every time we reach for our phones and spend 20 minutes on, some scrolling feed, I guess. I don't know. There's this thing where it's like, this neuropsychologist says if the first thing you do in the morning is reach for your phone and hop on some kind of social media, it is going to be from the rest of the day significantly harder to get done what you want to. So it's like, in a way, the best way to do it, if you were going to, is to wait until the end of the day, like kind of like delayed gratification. Like you allow yourself to indulge once you have completed all of your tasks. So there's little things like that you can do, or just learning to become more present when you wake up and learning to read more and meditating more. Like it's not an easy, straightforward thing. It's going to be a battle once you realize, once you go through that first step of acknowledging it is a problem. It's like any drug addict. Once they realize that that actually is an issue, they would actually be much better off without it, that their potential is being affected by this thing. They can start to make positive change. Even to this day, I go through ruts where I'm more or less, affected by this problem, but it has always been a consistent thing, a consistent force in my life. I found that it is in a way holding me back from all of my dreams. Like I find it harder to work on my book or learn Spanish or all of these things because some part of me would much rather, sit and watch some YouTube, feed of things that I don't even remember after, it's strange how our reward systems are so primal. They work off of these really complex neural pathways and these, just ancient like architecture of our minds that, don't even necessarily apply to the modern day, and how easily they can be tricked by these super stimuli. But really, like, it is a problem, and it might be a problem in your own life, and it's worth acknowledging first and then seeing what you can do about it, because I do think it is ruining your life. I do think it is probably holding you back from your highest potential. Maybe it doesn't feel like a big issue to you. Maybe you're that drug addict who thinks it's not a big deal and you could quit at any time. But see how hard it is to do a dopamine detox. See how hard it is once you are not connected to this super stimuli you carry around in your phone all the time. And see what the whole world looks like without it. I think I advocate for everyone to at least try that, because in my own life it's made a massive difference just having that perspective and working on it every day.